Right, turning now to the state of Detroit's bankruptcy and the few things that may make it move quickly or tack on years. The city is expected to file its restructuring plan next week, but a big holdup is a deal for the water department, and we haven't heard anything in Lansing yet about that $350 million that would help save Art and offset the pension cuts. So let's start first with the water department. There news out this week that commissioners from all three counties met to talk about this deal, and it's not moving. It's not moving right now.
And I'm not sure it's going to move. I mean, there are a lot of real.
But how can it not move? Because isn't this the big linchpin to the entire bankruptcy process?
But if you're Oakland and Macomb County, you're not so motivated to say, well, we're going to step up here and solve this problem. I talked to Bob Dano in Oakland County yesterday, Mark Hackle in Macomb County. I didn't get the sense that either one of them was prepared to make this deal. They're worried about all the things they don't know. They haven't got the information necessary. I mean, think of this as a huge merger and acquisition deal. They don't have the due diligence, hasn't been done, that they need to get done to sign their name on it. They don't know what the legacy costs are. They don't know what the capital needs are. They've got projections from $2.5 billion to $5 billion. Well, that's a big difference. They don't know who's going to pay the outstanding debts, what the labor contract situation is, and they're being asked to sign. And what it appears to be, and from their point of view, Kevin Orr is trying to create a revenue stream for the city of Detroit out of a system here that is basically broken, unprofitable, and has really no business generating money for anyone until those issues are fixed.
Is this a game of chicken? Can Kevin Orr do this without them?
He can. It's not.
Will it work?
It's not the ideal. I mean, I think you want the counties in on this deal, because the suburban counties, because the weight of their good credit ratings and things like that will help you restructuring the debt in the system. If it's just a system that's owned by Wayne County and Detroit, you have other issues that are not going to go away. At the same time, the counties have to really start looking at this from a very practical standpoint. Everybody does, in fact. We don't pay enough for water in this community, and that's why the system is in the shape it's in. It's got something like $3 billion worth of backlogged maintenance and infrastructure upgrades that have to be done. The giant main bursts that we're seeing all over the metro area right now are related to that. This is a bitter pill that everyone is going to have to swallow at some point. The costs are out of control. There were a lot of mistakes made in the management of the water system that are responsible for that. But the principal problem has been that we just have not taken care of this.
That's true to a point. I think you're right that we haven't paid enough for water, and we've certainly neglected the capital needs of the system. But remember, this is a water system that's been operating, according to the independent study, with 80% bloat in their payroll. I mean, that is outrageous, and there's some.
But they're getting that
Steve,
under control.
There's some question, Steve, whether they can even go to the capital markets and get debt rated. They're in such bad shape. And that's one of the things these counties want to know before they.
But it'll be harder to go to the markets to get rated without Macomb and Oakland in there.
No question, but they're not sure they can do it even so.
But they're going to have to pay
they're worried
anyway.
about this liability dragging down their bond ratings for other borrowing, other debt. There's a lot of unanswered questions here, and you say, well, they won't have a choice. Well, Brooks is up last night talking about, okay, if we're going to get dinged for $5-6 billion, I can build a system for that and manage it without all of these.
Is that really feasible in terms of timing? But let me ask you this: what happens to the bankruptcy process? How delayed is it for Detroit if this deal doesn't get done in the next 2 months?
Well, $6 billion of the debt, of the $18 billion in debt, is related to the water department. I mean, it's a big part of our liability, and if you can't, Kevin Orr's plan is to essentially sever that from the city and say that's no longer Detroit. This is under some independent authority that can do things that the city can't. To make up for that. It's a huge part of his plan. I don't think
but
that
it's not the debt that's the big, spinning off the debt's the big part of his plan, because that debt's covered by revenues. That debt's different than the city's debt. The issue here is he wants to generate something on the order of $40 million
for
a year for the city off of this system, and there's a question of these suburban communities have a legitimate question of whether it's worth that.
Well, I think that's a perfectly reasonable question.
And that's the holdup here. I mean, his plan depends on getting that revenue out of this system, and I'm not sure there's revenue to be got.
All right, let's take a look at the $350 million that the governor said was not a bailout, but was just help defray the cost. With art, we haven't heard anything out of Lansing, and lawmakers stood up there with him and said, okay, we definitely want to take a look at this. What are we hearing from lawmakers about their support from that, and when are they going to move on that, and doesn't that also have to be moved on for the bankruptcy to move forward as well?
Well, you know, it was in the budget. So, I mean, now it's part of the budget wrangling. And you could be assured that these outstate Republicans who are taking a look at this and saying, you know, well, wait a minute, we got a Fitch report out here that says if we do this deal, it may hurt our own credit ratings, make it harder for all other Michigan communities to borrow money, to go to the bond markets and raise money. There's a little wariness. I think the governor's going to get what he wants. The question is, what's he going to have to give in return?
Okay, so what is he going to have to give up in return? What's the trade for this?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you could give. I mean, certainly the Republicans in Lansing right now really want a better income tax relief package out of this budget. Maybe that's something he can be flexible on. I think that's bad policy. But, you know, we're not talking about policy here. We're talking about politics at this point. What can he get through the legislature? You know, again, the concern here, my big concern is you're doing this piecemeal again. You're going to solve this problem in Detroit. You have a $30 to $50 billion problem like this around the state. I think you got to start thinking about that in comprehensive terms, rather than is it Detroit or is it Wayne County or is it Ecorse or Lincoln Park? Everybody is almost in the same boat here, particularly with the healthcare costs that retirees are bringing to the table right now. So I think what I would love to see the legislators do is push back to the governor in that way and say, listen, let's not just talk about Detroit. Let's not just talk about what we're going to bail out there. Let's talk about this whole problem and solve it one time instead of coming to back to do it
that
over
takes
and
over. And that requires some really hard choices.
It does.
Some really hard decisions, and we're more limited now in our ability to make those decisions with the huge expansion of Medicaid we've seen. We don't know what those costs are going to amount to. The governor built $122 million into this budget this year to deal with that, and it was smart. But to deal with those unexpected costs of the Obamacare expansion.
Well, it's not
you
unexpected.
can't do everything, and you know
No, you're
that's
right.
what
You
we're
can't
trying
do
to
it.
do.
No, and